I'm glad I have all this and purchased all of that so that I could do this the way I did 10 years ago. Welcome to $7,000 down the drain. James Ernest.
The simplest solution is always the way to go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Here All Week. My name is Kelly Wright.
And I'm James Ernest, and we're here all week this week with my friend Greg Bennick from forever ago. I have not seen you, sir, in forever.
I've never met you before. Who are you?
This is the first time.
I've not seen you in forever. It's been at least, well, I saw you on Christmases for multiple years. So it's been multiple Christmases ago since I've seen you.
The action baby is 19.
I have never.
The action baby is 19.
I have never seen you before, Greg. This is the first time we're meeting.
Yeah, that's true. You never have. Now, the action baby, the aforementioned referenced action baby, is the offspring of James Ernest, named the action baby due to her just actionable activity as a baby, now 19 years old, which I refuse to believe. Always an infant in my mind.
I think she got that nickname because she was just lying motionless on the window seat when you came to visit.
The action baby.
Even now, as she rolls into her 20th year, she lies more or less motionless now on the couch with her YouTube in hand, and I guess like the rest of us, waiting for the world to start spinning again.
Yeah,
the action baby.
Yep. So, Greg, you've known James for years, but since I am first meeting you, I would like to get to know you a bit more. So
Great.
I sleuthed a bit, and my goodness, you are a busy person. You have quite a diverse background. Musician, you have done motivational speaking. You, according to your gregbennick.com website, your opening sentence is values human connection, and a virtual and live thought provoker, public presenter, and Tedx speaker, and humanitarian influencer. That's a whole lot of stuff going on. Where do you find the time?
And where do I find the time amidst that to name babies like the action baby? It's amazing. But I make it work.
Are you a humanitarian influencer or a humanitarian influencer? Do you yourself influence others in the form of a humanitarian, or do you go out and seek out humanitarians and influence them?
The way I see it is that I have done humanitarian work throughout my life, and even that word I think I'm getting away from. But anyway,
right,
I've done
it sounds
that
a
sort
lot
of
like
work
vegetarian, and
that's right, which I am,
right.
Kind of, but not really,
that
because I'm
implies
vegan.
that
But
you
the point is,
eat people, which is not good. I think you should know that.
well, I influence people to do that. I do not myself.
Wow, you are a heavy influencer then. Just try your seatmate. Just go on, take a bite out of your seatmate. I don't know what kind of power that takes. Man,
gregbennick.com/cannibalism.
Yeah, that's right.
So, musician, let's start there. Tell me about your music background.
Well, I've sung in hardcore punk rock bands for my entire life, and I have bands going currently. I've had bands going for decades, and I've traveled around the world singing in punk rock bands and hardcore bands, and writing lyrics with meaning for quite a while, and trying to stir audiences into collective frenzy. That's sort of my my goal and what I focus on doing.
How did you get into the hardcore punk scene? Did it start with you mosh pitting?
It did not, actually. I grew up in Connecticut. And in Connecticut, there were very few punk rockers when I was first getting involved. There was a club called the Anthrax in Stamford, Connecticut, which is a sort of iconic classic club for Connecticutians. Connecticutites. It's been a while.
Connecticuters.
Connectors like the Anthrax. And it moved to Norwalk, Connecticut, right when I got involved in punk rock and got very popular. And I got involved in punk rock through some friends of mine who had found through radio stations and through borrowed cassette tapes this strange music. And then we found out about this club, the Anthrax, and started going to shows at the Anthrax in 1987 or so. And this was a time of explosion in punk and hardcore in Connecticut specifically, at that club. And we saw a lot of iconic bands. So I had a really healthy start. It wasn't just I found a cassette tape or a CD mix made by some weird cousin. I was like in the heart of it when it was happening in Connecticut at the time. So that's where a lot of it came from.
Do you remember the first time that you heard punk music that really you're like, this is life-changing? Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I remember the first cassette tape that I heard, which was a mix my friend made, and that was inspiring. But the first time I ever had that shift from, wow, I like hair metal, to, oh my gosh, this is going to be the rest of my life listening to punk rock.
Mm-hmm.
My friends and I had gone to see a band called Husker Du.
Oh, yes.
They were an iconic band.
Oh, yes.
Yep. And we were at the Agora in West Hartford, which is now gone. And we were walking backstage, and two of the members of Husker Du were drinking from a water fountain. And as we walked up, I thought to myself, oh my God, those guys are in Husker Du. My friend said to them, hey guys, welcome to Connecticut. And I remember Grant Hart looking up and kind of smiling. And then he leans back down to drink from the water fountain. And my friend said, just don't drink the water. And he jumps up like he's startled. And then he laughed, and we all laughed. And it was in that moment I thought, wait a minute, when I go see Mötley Crüe or Pink Floyd or Rat or Twisted Sister, I can't talk to them and joke about the water. But in punk rock, evidently you can talk to the musicians. This is life-changing. And it was that human connection that was the game changer for me years ago. And that really that was the moment where everything turned on for me, when I realized there was a human connection possible in this genre.
Excellent. So what do you play? Or sing, bass, drums? What do you do?
I sing, but singing implies melody. I scream. I do it well.
Okay.
I do. And it's taken me quite a while to figure out how to do that without losing my voice completely.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, it was in 2000, I think it was in 2015, one of my bands was playing in Russia. We were on stage in St. Petersburg, I believe. It might have been Moscow, but regardless, I was on stage, and that was the first time at the end of a set that I thought to myself, oh my gosh, my voice didn't go out. I finally figured out how to do this, and I'd been doing it up at that point for 25 years or so. It took a long time to figure out how to scream correctly without losing my voice.
Yeah, it's a heck of an art. I studied opera for a long time, and learned how to have that proper bass, because I sing myself, but my particular stuff is jazz, blues, and swing. That's what I really like to do. And so I had that shift when I was younger, as far as on me, the particular music I wanted to sing. I was probably 6, maybe 7 years old, and I was in the basement of my friend's house. Her name is Barbie, and they had the pull chains for their lights in the basement. And I remember that Barbie's mom was a huge Doris Day fan and had Doris Day playing in her house all the time on records. And Barbie and I would stand around the chain holding our ears and singing like we were singing in a studio to Doris Day stuff. So I fell in love with Doris Day, and had, listened to Ella Fitzgerald and Doris Day and Keely Smith and Sarah Vaughan and all that stuff. And really, I was born way too late, because my singing style is very mid-century, 20th century, mid-century, big band stuff. So, but I feel you on that life-changing moment where you're like, this is what I want to do. So.
And I feel you on the born way too late, because I was born in 1971. The rise of metal, hair metal, which to me is always going to be, at least in part, the ultimate music ever created by human beings. The rise of hair metal was really 1981, 1982, 83, and that was even getting a little bit late in the game, but still 1980, 81, 82, and then into the early 80s. Okay. My parents were together for 10 years, I believe, before they had me. Had they had me when they got together, I would have been 20 years old rather than just 9 years old at the start of metal. Rather than being 19, I would have been, rather than being 9, I would have been 19. Just about to turn 20 years old, right when metal hit. And instead of being this little kid listening to Mötley Crüe, I could have been in Mötley Crüe. I could have been in LA. I could have been doing coke. I could have been just going nuts. And instead, I was like this nerdy kid in Connecticut. And I have literally sat my parents down within the last 4 years and had a conversation with them where I finally got off my chest and said, listen, you stayed together too long before having me. I appreciate every moment that I've been alive in this world, but damn you for waiting for so long, because I could have been in Mötley Crüe or Rat or Wasp, and instead I'm just some guy.
But you're some guy who's creating change in the world, though. I mean, you said you've done a bunch of humanitarian work, so maybe this is the point. This is the reason why you were delayed to your earthly presentation.
So it's true that I'm the executive director and founder of a nonprofit called 100 for Haiti, and we do support work for Haitian-based initiatives in rural Haiti around putting roofs on houses, clean water initiatives, feeding people, and not just like sending food, but rather providing seeds that the Haitians request so they can grow their own food. And it's based in mutual aid, not charity. And I've done that kind of work throughout my entire life. But I could have been in Mötley Crüe. Don't you understand? What is wrong with you?
Done all of these things as the lead singer of Mötley Crüe. I don't think these things are mutually exclusive.
It's true. Oh, that's mind-blowing.
Can you imagine what I would have done in 1987 with my millions from being in Wasp or Twisted Dawkins? I mean, it could have been anything.
You would have been too coked out. I'm sorry. You would have been too coked out to do that.
Or I would have been so energized.
You could have started your charity work 10 years earlier and anticipated the earthquake in Haiti that actually caused you to start your charity. You could have gotten out in front of it. I think 10 years in advance would have been good for you, Greg. I think the world is owed more of you.
Oh, okay.
I think you're absolutely right. Can you imagine if I had landed in Haiti a few minutes before and said, excuse me, everybody, follow me this way, please, just out of the way. Buildings fall down. Everybody's safe.
Mötley Crüe.
All because of my time, because of being in Mötley Crüe. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad, when you're watching and listening to this, thanks again for the time that you spent nurturing your relationship and falling in love instead of allowing me to achieve
Greg,
my destiny.
when you and I never learned to shout properly because all I ever used it for was street performing. When did you and I meet? I know we started sharing juggling spots early in our friendship. Do you remember what introduced us? Was it just that crucible of street performing?
If I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think in 1993-ish, I went to the University District Street Fair, and I was planning on doing some busking, some juggling on the street. And I was walking down the street, and I remember Sendabeth Spey, rest her soul, screamed out to me, "Hey, juggler, are you looking for a pitch?" And I knew that I was the juggler because I had a unicycle and juggling clubs in my hand, but I didn't know what a pitch was. And I turned around and I said, yeah. And she said, well, come on over here. And I joined the pitch for the non-street performers amongst you. That's the performing spot. And I got in the queue, the rotation of street performers at the pitch. If I'm not mistaken, if you weren't performing there, and if I didn't meet you there, I met you then at Folklife shortly thereafter, where I went down seeking a pitch and met you, and we would share a pitch on a corner down at the Seattle Center. If I'm not mistaken, same year, 1993. Sounds about
right to me. And yeah, I was working all of those fairs out of pure desperation for an extra bit of folding money. And we juggled together that's thereafter, what we were doing. Often, even at Christmas time.
That's right. At the time, there was a combination or a partnership between Frederick and Nelson and the Cancer Research Center, not Frederick and Nelson, Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, and the Sheraton downtown, and somebody else was involved, and they were doing these breakfasts at Christmas time, and Santa was involved, and I pitched them on having a juggling team act because I had gotten a call saying they were looking for
because they'd
someone.
Recently lost their juggling team and wanted another one. No,
hold on one second.
I apologize.
Can you say that again?
Well, they had they had recently lost their juggling team and wanted another one. And you called me and said, what shall we call ourselves for this gig? So obviously we had not done the partner thing yet. And I said, what kind of gig is it? And you said, it's just a sort of a Santa Claus Christmas time breakfast thing. And I said, well, perfect. We're the Santa Claus Christmas time breakfast jugglers. But they didn't go for it.
They did not. In fact, they thought that was a terrible idea. So what we did was we renamed ourselves the Lightspeed Jugglers. We had promo photos taken that I still have, and we shot them, if I'm not mistaken, on the west side of the bike tunnel going across the 520 bridge. I still have those photos. I remember wearing some sort of cummerbund, I think, and bow tie or some post-80s concoction. And they liked the Lightspeed Jugglers. So we went down and had this attitude of we can, and we just did it. We made it happen.
You need to send me the photos of the Lightspeed Jugglers. Those need to be shared.
I also have the bio. We had a one sheet made, and it was all the places where the Lightspeed Jugglers had performed. What we didn't note was that the Lightspeed Jugglers had never performed anywhere. We individually had performed places. So by extension, we have performed in these
it would have
places.
been perfect if our team act was just us doing our solo acts next to each other.
Yes. At the exact same time. At the same time. Because we didn't really even have an act per se. I remember we came out each week, and I remember the first thing we do as we were passing clubs back and forth is I would say to you, hello, James. And you'd say, hello, Greg. And that was our patter. I mean, like, what is this? This isn't a show. This is just hanging out with each other while people watch.
It was a dry sense of humor. It sounds like that. It was just you were doing extremely complicated juggling things, but yet keeping the patter as dry as possible. So that juxtaposition is actually quite funny. I love stuff like that, but it's not necessarily for everyone. So
it's not. I mean, it was for us for a few years. We hung out with a guy named Leo the Clown. We hung out with Santa Claus. And the thing is that I don't know what kind of budget they had. They didn't pay us a ton of money. And I think by proxy, they didn't pay Santa a lot either, because I do remember one particular morning, and James will remember this with glee, where we were in the back dressing room and Santa came in, and Santa was kind of a big bikerish looking guy. And he came in obviously hungover from the night before of not Santa-ing and sat down and ordered some drinks. And I remember him sitting there looking forlorn and upset, and he was putting on his pants and his Santa jacket and the hat and the strapping on extra beard strands or whatever he did. And I remember him taking a drink of whatever he drank and just dejectedly, and then peppermint schnapps, and then dejectedly looking out, not even at us, but at the room, and speaking to his entire life as he said, "This just isn't fun for anybody," and walked out of the room to entertain children at the Santa Claus Christmas time breakfast, which also featured juggling.
Oh, that is just soul crushing. Crushing.
He could not stop reminding us that he was a biker. He walked around without his shirt. So he's got the red pants, the black boots, the suspenders, and no shirt, and a big white beard. And yeah, he was knocking back schnapps at 9 a.m, saying that'll put some color in your cheeks. And I agree with you. The phrase was, "Man, this just isn't fun for anybody."
Well, I do have to hand it to Biker Santa that the fact that he was drinking peppermint schnapps, that he was going to be dealing with children, his breath was minty fresh. So kudos to him that he didn't smell like bourbon. He smelled like mint. Perfect. That's exactly what Santa should smell like. Rosy cheeks and mint.
That was our Santa.
Excellent.
That was our Santa.
Excellent. So I want to go back to your 100 for Haiti charity. Is this a boots on the ground kind of charity? Have you gone there and actually put in the physical labor?
It is. And I'll differentiate. Yes, I've been there many, many, many times. And yes, I've done the physical labor. For me, the physical labor is listening and helping coordinate. I try not to do like labor that would take the labor away from a Haitian who wants to do it, because we budget for people to be paid, right? So, and the only reason I designate or specify that is because oftentimes people will ask, can I come to Haiti with you? Can I come to Haiti and volunteer? I'm a carpenter. And while that sounds great on paper, there's a Haitian carpenter somewhere who would lose their job if the American comes in to do the carpentry, right?
Yeah.
So I've been there many times, yes. But we have a coordinator, somebody who is Haitian from the area that we serve, on the ground, lives there, lives his entire life there, who's not only president of the board of directors, but also the in-country director of the organization. So I basically work for him, meaning we talk once a week. I listen to him. He says, I really want to build these roofs and houses, and I say, okay, well, we can find people to donate the money to build a roof or the money to build a house. And even this morning, someone wrote me after seeing social media posts and asked what it cost to build a simple house. And I told him $300, and we got the donation. And now I'll call him, and that's how it goes. It basically he tells me what he needs, and then I seek out the funding. So one of the things we're working on now, and this isn't a pitch for donations, but they've asked for the soccer pitch, which is different from the juggling pitch, but the soccer field to be rebuilt in the Rankit region of Haiti. And this would be the biggest project we've ever taken on. It's going to be a multi-year type thing, but they mentioned it. So I bring that to the rest of the board and to donors and whatnot, and then we'll seek out the funds and make it happen. And yes, I'll fly down and discuss and coordinate and work as needed and that sort of thing.
What was the motivation behind this for you to get this started? I mean, what was the spark for that? Because it's a heck of an endeavor. I mean, it's a big endeavor.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I saw this drunken Santa at the Santa Claus Christmas time breakfast, and it ruined my life because I was already realizing that I was too young to play in rap.
Right. Yeah, if only you had been born the same year as our naked drunk Santa Claus, you could have.
Yeah, we could have grown up together, and there would have been one point of diversion where I would have said, "No, Jim, stay with me."
Right. And we can make this fun for just one person.
Just one person.
If I can just bring a smile to the cheeks of one Santa Claus out there, I feel like.
That's who this podcast is really for. It's not for the Haitians. It's not for my parents. It's for the one Santa out there of the millions. Sorry, kids, but of the millions who's thinking about she or he can't wait to get drunk this Christmas time because it isn't fun for anybody, but it really could be for even just one person.
I agree. That's what exactly this. You have distilled this podcast down to the very essence, my friend.
So, to your question, when the earthquake happened in Haiti in 2010, I found out through the craziest set of circumstances. And you know what? Because your podcast has that bit of crazy to it, I'll tell you the whole story, which only takes a few extra seconds. My good friend had turned 40 years old in Connecticut, and his wife called me and said, would you be willing to fly here and do something very strange for Al's 40th birthday? And I said, yes. And she said, he's always had this dream of having a gorilla at his birthday party, like someone in a gorilla suit, like walking around. And I said, I've done far stranger things. I've worked with James Ernest. I'd be happy to be a gorilla.
I've always had similar dreams, it turns out.
So, when you hear the rest of the story, you'll know who's available for your next special event. I said I'd be happy to. I've loved this guy since high school. He and I got into punk rock. He got into it before me and got me involved more. Point is, I flew to Connecticut. She rented this gorilla outfit. I show up at the event space early, put on this huge gorilla outfit. And when he comes in, I'm the gorilla. Okay. You'd expect that as I'm walking around grunting like a gorilla, after 10 minutes, I'd take the gorilla hat off and wave at my friend and surprise him. Okay. I did not. What you need to know for the rest of the story to make sense is that the earthquake in Haiti had just happened like a few days before. I flew to Connecticut. I'd been posting about the earthquake in Haiti up until going to Connecticut because I'd made a documentary in Haiti the summer before. And I was posting in support of my friends who were okay, but just sending word from Haiti when they could. Okay, back to the gorilla. I'm walking around. 15 minutes goes by, and I'm thinking to myself, how often do you get to be in a gorilla costume? I kept this thing on for like 2.5 hours. I'm sweating profusely. No one knows who I am. It got to the point where like it was funny and then not funny and then weird. And his wife later told me that he turned to her at one point. My friend turned to her and said, how long did you hire the guy in the gorilla outfit for? Okay. 2.5 hours in, I'm like knocking over tables and like tasting people's drinks through the costume, whatever I'm doing. And I sit down next to my friend and I take the gorilla hat off. And he's like, oh my God, I can't believe you've been here 2.5 hours. everyone starts asking me, hey, so you've been posting about this earthquake in Haiti? I'm like sweating. I'm like, yes, I have. And they said, you know that our friends who grew up going to the Anthrax, punk rock, what have you, are sailing out of Miami in the next couple days with a boat with medical supplies and food. These two punk rock guys sailing to Haiti. And I said, wow, it's amazing. I called the two punk rock guys and they said, yeah, we'd love to have you with us as part of this crew. And we're just going to be a bunch of punk rockers sailing to Haiti, warding off pirates on the high seas. And I thought, what could go wrong? So I flew back to Seattle, bought another plane ticket, flew to Miami, got on this boat, and we sailed to Haiti. And as it turns out, as far as we know, we were the first private relief boat to make it to the southern coast of Haiti.
Wow.
We had about 12,000 or so. We don't know exactly how many pounds, somewhere between 12 and 15,000 pounds of medical supplies and food. We've advertised 10,000 because that was the legal limit we could carry, but it was more than that. Medical supplies and food, made it to the southern coast of Haiti. And once there, I stayed behind when the boat sailed home so I could find my friends in Port-au-Prince and connect with people, and friends in the periphery an hour or two outside of Port-au-Prince as well, make sure they were okay. And when I got home, I wanted to do more and keep doing more in support of the people that I knew there. And that's where 100 for Haiti originated. And I could tell you more about it, but the guerrilla part was really the most important.
That's dedication. That's dedication to being a guerrilla. I commend you for that. It's a long time. So with your punk rock career and melding punk rock music and your humanitarian stuff, you've done TEDx Talks. So do you perform at these TEDx Talks or do you just talk?
Well, I mean, I do a couple different things with TEDx in my history. I did a TEDx Talk before it was cool. Now everyone does a TEDx Talk. And I've had so many friends in the last couple of years say, oh man, I did a TEDx Talk. And I'll look at their TEDx Talk online. It's literally, I don't even want to say where, because I'll give away where, and then the friend will know and they'll listen to this and be upset. But we could do a TEDx. We could get the license and do TEDx, podcast right now and just go ahead and do it. It's more involved than that. But the point is, everyone's done a TEDx Talk. When I did mine, it wasn't that way. It still wasn't TED, full on TED, which is the geniuses of the world. But still, it was pretty cool. It was pretty unique. I will tell you this. A lot of people know the name Simon Sinek. He wrote a book called Start With Why, which is revered as one of the most important business books in history. And Simon got his start speaking at TEDx. A little known fact is who followed Simon Sinek that day that launched his mega millions career. It would be yours truly, Greg Bennick of the Lightspeed Jugglers, formerly known as the Santa Claus Christmas Time Breakfast Jugglers. Literally, he gets off stage and they said, thank you very much. And I thought to myself, that was such a simple idea. Start with why? Like, start with that. Okay, whatever. And I went up and did my talk. Simon's talk is now one of the top 3 most watched TEDx Talks or TED Talks combined in history. And mine has about 20,000 views. I'm not jealous in the slightest because he gets to talk today for probably $30,000 a minute to the most important people in the world. And I get to spend time with you guys. It's really quite nice.
It's like I always say to my friends, I would rather be with you folks than the finest people in the world.
No, it's true. And I joke and I turn that story into comedy for my own sake. But it's amazing the way that things happen in life, right? So I've been on stage as a speaker, but I also coach people who are doing talks, whether C-level executives or people doing TEDx Talks. And I've just gotten involved with another TEDx organization as a speaking story coach for their TEDx organization. I'm being vague because we haven't announced it officially yet, but those sorts of things happen. But I coach people as a speaker, but I'm also speaking on stage all the time as well.
Are you still, you're still performing though in music. You're still doing your live music. Is that correct? Well, as much as the pandemic allows you to your live music.
Yeah, I do. And I've got a few bands going right now, but, I also am making my living primarily, doing presentations, whether virtual or now what people are calling hybrid, because they're coming back to live virtual, and it'll be live soon enough, I'm sure. But I do those sorts of presentations all the time too.
How far are you booked out for stuff like this? Can people can book you, right? I mean, or are you?
I'm available forever, starting at about 3:38 p.m. today. Oh my gosh, look at the time. I'm available for your special event. No, I have my bookings are sort of here, there, and everywhere, meaning I'm booked the first weekend in November. I'm booked the first weekend in August in like Houston and Denver, respectively. And I've got some other ones on the books as well. I've been spending most of my time the last few years working on a biography of a cultural anthropologist named Ernest Becker. That's been my main focus for the last few years.
Okay.
So I haven't put nearly as much time as everyone else into booking and trying to make money, because the things that I do are either working on this book, or I have an initiative that I do with my friends in Portland, Oregon, called the Portland Mutual Aid Network, where we serve unsheltered, houseless people on the streets of Portland. We serve food and supplies every Wednesday, and have since the week after George Floyd's death last year. So I've been focusing my time on those sorts of initiatives rather than selfishly thinking I need bookings and money and those sorts of things. I'm just far more interested in helping people in the last year and listening to them than I am being self-serving. But that will change. We'll see. But the time for that is over.
Well, Greg, I
Helping
have some
people is passé.
I have some recommended lyrics with meaning for you here, if you'd like to listen. It may sound a little familiar. It begins with "chopped in half."
Yes, I know it well.
It's a fine song. It's a song that you familiarized me with as we would drive back and forth to our Santa Claus Christmas time breakfast gigs, and I still think of it fondly now. Chopped in half, feel the blood spill from your, and then I don't know what you said next, because it was always just blah, and then there's sort of a regretful stage where the lyric is rotting waste and nutrients now useless. And it's true.
Okay, so all of that is true, except for the fact that the song, as you just lyricized it, does not exist. The song exists. The song is by a death metal band called Obituary. The song is called Chopped in Half. And the singer, of course, is singing like that, like out of control crazy. And for years, I thought the lyrics were chopped in half, feel the blood spill from your, and I assumed it was bowels. I have no idea, but he sounds like blah. Rotting waste and nutrients now useless is the way I interpreted what he was saying, because it served me and James and I to think about someone who was chopped in half, who had eaten a tasty and nutritious meal, now finding those nutrients useless because they simply fell onto the floor.
Fell out.
Okay.
Nobody can use them
within the last, no one can use them. They serve no purpose for anybody. Within the last month, I found out the actual lyrics, and I texted James for the first time in the pandemic year. And I said, basically thinking about you, and check this out. Here's the actual lyrics. They are not what we've been saying for the last 20 years. These are the actual lyrics. I mean, to Obituary's Chopped in Half. And I don't have it in front of me, but listeners can, I'm sure, can go find the lyrics to Chopped in Half and see how deeply introspective they are, and have confidence that nutrients are never useless, even when chopped in half.
I'm going to look at
Kelly's like,
looking.
What have I gotten myself
No, I'm
into?
looking. No, I'm looking them up.
I always reach
Because,
out to Greg on Mother's Day, because for some reason we started calling each other mother while we were working together, and it just stuck.
That's right.
It's just stuck. And so now I usually write to Greg before I write to my biological mother.
I should start writing you before I write to her, because I usually write to her and then I think, oh, it's so nice to be able to write to my mother. And then I always think, James.
Well, I have found the lyrics. You'll be happy to know I found the lyrics. It's a short, it's two stanzas and a chorus that consists of chopped in half. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, 2 verses and just a simple chorus. It's simple. So I'm going to use my approach that I do when I do my audiobook narration. So this is an audition for you, Greg. Okay. Chopped in half. Feel the blood spill from your mouth. With rotting ways come destiny. Feel the soul taking over. Bleed. Chopped in half. Feel the blood spill from your mouth. With rotting ways comes destiny. Feel the soul taking over. Bleed. And thank you.
Our version is so much better,
Yes.
but your reading was exceptional.
Your version is much better.
I'm willing to license our version, members of Obituary, if you're listening. You can use our version for a fee, your version is much more introspective and perhaps meaningful, but ours is way, way
It
better.
is.
And it speaks to the importance of not being chopped in half
It's more
if you want the
technically
full
correct.
nutritive value of your food.
So, thank you for taking the time out of your day with us. We appreciate it. You are based on the West Coast, is that correct?
I am. I'm based in Seattle, Washington. I consider myself bi-coastal between
Okay.
Seattle and Portland.
All right.
I've spent half my time in each
You
this last
guys,
year.
the fact that you haven't seen each other for so long and you live within the same city, that's a shame. That's a shame on you both. So
It is. I'm driving over right
I'm
now.
chastising you both for that.
Let's at least blame COVID for the last 12 months. But before that, Gregory, you traveled
no
too much.
excuse. No excuse.
Okay, we'll see each other soon.
So what I'm going to do for our Dirty Dozen listeners, for more information, I will post all the stuff that we have talked about. Your band trial, the website is live.
We've never really even had a website,
okay.
but if people want to, people can link to things through my Instagram if they'd like, which is just at Greg Bennick, GregBennick. And the band, the bands that have Instagram accounts are linked there, and people can find stuff through the link tree that's on the Instagram, or of course, GregBennick.com has info too.
Fantastic. So I will make sure all links are provided in our show notes for our Dirty Dozen listeners. Before we leave, Greg, do you have any questions for us or for James or for me or for us as in general group?
So many. Tell me more about the Dirty Dozen listeners. Tell me more about the Dirty Dozen listeners. Tell me how you two know each other, and tell me the why, not to use Simon Sinek's wording, but tell me the why of the podcast for you guys.
Okay. First of all, the Dirty Dozens are, that's approximately how many listeners we have, is just over a dozen, I'm assuming. So those are our names. So we're slowly building our audience, I should say. I'm watching as I jump on the Blueberry podcast statistic page, as I'm watching our numbers go up as we get more downloads. So we're slowly making progress, which I am very happy about. So as I always tell the dozens, please tell your friends, have their friends tell two friends, and so on and so on and so on. It's a show that provides entertainment value at no cost to you, just maybe 30 to 35 minutes of your time. And you can do it while in the shower, washing dishes, driving. It's very easy to listen to this show. And how we met, James, you and I met years ago.
At work.
And was it at work? We were working at the Amazing Society, I believe.
In a very short period of time that I had a full-time job outside the house, Kelly and I shared an office, and mostly we shared her office, where I would wander in uninterested in doing my job and start up conversations that kept her from doing hers.
From doing mine. Right. And so we just cracked each other up. I think for at least a couple of months, we were just quoting over and over again, just ridiculous lines from Silence of the Lambs. I mean, James would just walk in and go, "Aren't you about a size 14?" And I just start laughing, and we just riff on that one. So.
Heaven must be missing an angel.
So we met at work, and even then we said, we really should do a podcast. I would love to just sit down and just talk with you and crack each other up. And so
a lot of our friends, when we would entertain them at lunch, would say, you guys should really get a podcast, which we took in the positive light. Not to say that we should shut up and go away, but rather that the entertainment that we were providing to them should be spread even wider around the globe.
Even wider. If they were going to suffer, everybody else should suffer as well. So it took.
So that one day, and I think you can see this clearly, one day this just wouldn't be fun for anyone.
Exactly.
Let's go.
So it took the shutting down of the world for us to get motivated to do this, because we were stuck in our homes, and James texted me and said, "Hey, you want to do a podcast?" Or no, you communicated through my husband, Richard, because Richard was working on his game that he was re-releasing. The 25th
I wrote a note on the
Federal
back of his neck, and I knew that you would see it there. And it said, "Podcast?" ?
No, you had communicated through Richard, and Richard told me, he said, James said he's still interested in doing a podcast. And I was like, great. And so that's how that started. So we've been fumbling our way through this for over a year, and it's been enjoyable. I look forward to recording every week. So it's always nice. Yeah.
I'm so glad. Well, I've had a great time. I think it's wonderful.
Well, thank you. Please come back. Please come back again when you have anything new that you're starting, or when you were starting a big fundraiser for 100 for Haiti. tell us, and we will love to have you back to push it and promote it and let people know where and how and when and why and all that good stuff. Sound good?
That's great. Yeah, it sounds fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Excellent. To everyone listening, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy life to give us a listen. Again, Greg Bennick, thank you for, I hope I said that right. Greg Bennick? Bennick.
Bennick? You did.
Bennick. Greg Bennick. Social distancing laws and rules and stuff are still in effect. So masks, wash your hands, 6 feet. Vaccinations are going out. So be careful, be kind to yourself, be kind to your friends, your family, your community. We are all going through it. Thank you so much again for joining us today. My name is Kelly Wright.
And I'm James Erneston. We're here all week.